Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Nerdarch Steve, and today I'm joined by Toni Winslow-Brill. How are you doing today?
I'm really good. I'm excited to be here. So this will be fun.
I'm excited to have you on. I first encountered you from No Fun Allowed. I saw that you had done an interview over there, and you looked
Yes.
like you'd be fun to talk to. And have you come on and talk about game design or wherever else the conversation goes. So, for people who aren't familiar with you, could you introduce yourself and tell people what you do?
Sure. My name is Toni Winslow-Brill, and I am a freelance RPG designer. I do editing. I wear a lot of hats. I also work for Baldwin Games as one of their trilogy leads for the Moonshade Isles information. And I am about to eventually here, I think next year, take over as head for that. So I got a
Awesome.
meeting later today with Dave to talk about that stuff. So
I usually end up, at conventions when that was a thing, chatting with those folks for a bit of time. Um, so, are you working in RPGs full time then?
no, just because
It's
I'm
hard.
a widowed single mom and I have to actually have more than, the little bit I RPGs don't pay as much as you think.
No, I fully understand and get that. It is hard to work in this industry full time, and there's
Yeah,
not a lot of
it's
people doing
it's
it.
fun. I mean, it is. For my regular job, I am a director of research for a mergers and acquisitions firm.
Oh, that sounds really fancy
It's
and important.
dry.
Well, that's why you need a big title to make it sound more exciting.
Sounds impressive. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But what it really sounds like it is looking at a lot of contracts.
It is. I look at different contracts and I look at like how well a business is doing. I look at a bunch of different factors and then I pull that all together and different things like that sort. And then the company then decides if they're going to purchase or that kind of a thing, different businesses.
Yeah, I bet it at least has some useful crossover for running your own small business. Unlike coming from heavy construction and doing this stuff, apparently being able to run a jackhammer or drive a tack truck, not a lot of crossover.
What? That's
Instead, we're
shocking.
like, contracts, I don't know, sign the back of this pizza box lid.
Yeah, right. That's shocking. What?
Yeah, yeah. Um, so you've recently worked on Candle Keep, right? Mysteries of Candle
Correct.
Keep.
Yes. I am one of the authors for Candlekeep Mysteries. I did the end adventure, the 16th level adventure called Xanthoria.
And how was that experience?
That was pretty cool. I actually, when I got the email, because they reached out to different groups for that book, I actually thought that it was somebody messing with me. I was like, what?
Oh, that's funny. This is clearly a phishing scam.
Correct. I was like, although it's rather specific, I don't know about this. So yeah, but no, they reached out and said we have a project. They can't tell you what it is, but if I was interested to let them know, and of course I was like, yeah.
So, did they assign you that level adventure, or they say here's what's open? How did that work?
So they did. So what they did was they had a pool of writers and they assigned everybody a level of adventure. So originally Xanthoria was going to be 19th level, 19, 20th, 19 or 20. So it
They
was
ended
20.
up capping out at 16, right?
Yeah. So we had to do some revisions when they decided to change the scope of the book back down to a lower level. So
Was that after you had written the adventure or before?
it was after.
Of course.
So that's okay. Apparently, I was a little mean in the 20th level version.
Oh, that's fine. Just run as 16 then.
Yeah.
What
Yeah, I was
advice do
like,
you have
oh,
for people for running adventures for that level and creating them?
you know, it is a lot harder to write for higher levels just in general just because I think time management is such a different beast because players can do such different things. And it's a lot harder to, when you're writing for your home group, you know what they can do. You know how they're going to respond. You know all these things. And when you're writing for, just an adventure that lots of different people are going to play, you kind of have to really plot out and do a lot of thinking on, okay, so if you've got power gamers, they're going to probably try to do this. If you've got people who are just exclusively into role playing, you're going to have to plan out this. And then you've got the people who are in between, and you've got to kind of be real clear on all those moving parts. I'm a big fan of more information is better than not enough, because especially an inexperienced DM is going to struggle with how that's going to work, and an experienced DM is going to be able to cut out what they don't need and move forward.
Yeah, well, at least 16th level is before the wish spell.
Correct.
I had to just look it up. I'm like, is that wish spell or not? I had ran an adventure for my group, and it was Fraga Games Orcus Claws, and they were like 17th level, and it's like a 3rd level adventure. But I'm like, you know what? It's Christmas themed. It's around that time. I'll make this work. And it's like the first half of the adventure, they just wished by it. So, like Orcus Claw's lair is up in a mountain, and like part of the adventure is traveling to the mountain.
Yeah.
And the sorcerer is like, I'm just gonna cast wish and teleport us over there. And I'm like, okay, we can throw out this part, which actually worked out because it condensed the adventure for me, so it could be done as a one shot.
Oh, is it not supposed to be?
I wanted it to be, but in hindsight, having seen if they had gone through all the encounters up to getting into the lair, it probably would not have been a one shot. So it was what we like to call a happy accident.
Sometimes stuff takes way more than you think, or way less. You're like, oh, well, like you said, they just skipped all of that.
Yeah. Well, so in Candlekeep, it's obviously called Candlekeep Mystery, so a lot of them tend to be mystery style adventures.
Yep.
Which only gets harder and harder in a D&D game as they get up in level, because, like you mentioned, they just have more resources.
Yes.
Do you have any tips for that?
To make it a mystery, drag out the information as best you can. So, like, you don't have it all in exposition or blow up right here in the start. Creating mystery. I don't know. I kind of feel like most D&D adventures on some level are mysteries. You're not very, especially, I mean, there are going to be the straightforward ones. You go here, kill this guy, and this guy kidnaps the person. But the more interesting ones are going to have a little bit more nuance, and they're going to have that, hey, there's this thing happening and we're not really understanding what's going on. So now we have to kind of explore and figure out, why is, the townsfolk turning purple? I mean, we don't really know. Oh, is it good? Is it bad? So it's like you said, it's really difficult to have a mystery at higher level, especially when they have those powers, without taking away those powers for characters, because you don't want to neuter somebody just because it doesn't necessarily fit your story either.
Like, I instantly think of like murder mysteries, like as a GM going, if they can, if they have access to a 3rd level spells and a cleric, they're just going to speak with dead on the corpse.
Correct.
And that's just a given. So it's like, and you can't just take the head every time.
No, I gotta look in 5e if the tongue has to be there or not. I don't remember, so you could just do that. Let's speak with that now, buddy.
Yeah, but like you said, like the trick is to make them actually have to still work for it without also just denying them all those abilities that they work to get.
Well, and some of it is too is in those higher levels, your bad guys are going to have those same abilities, and so you have to think about that. That hey, they might cast wish, but You know what? So can I.
Yeah, what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Yes,
Do you
exactly.
so do you end up playing more as a player or as a DM?
It depends. Most of the time I end up being the DM, especially during pandemic times right now. So don't get to play nearly that often, and online play is very tiring to
Yeah.
judge, I feel like.
Do you,
So
do you have a preference?
if I had to pick, I will generally prefer to be a player. I like DMing and I like coming up with those ideas, but there's just something a little more relaxing to me about being a player
Yeah.
because I'm not
Well,
like stressed. Like, okay, is everyone having fun? Are they engaged? Are they engaged? This person hasn't talked in a while. Let's see what we can do there. You know what I mean? There's so much going on. I think as a DM, sometimes it's just easier to be a player.
it's nice to just show up and have fun.
Mhm. I tend to be a player if I go to conventions when those were like, a thing, just
Yeah.
because I DM so much at home. Conventions are like a vacation for me.
Do you have a favorite convention?
Um, I mean, there's a lot of really good ones out there that I used to, before I had a kid, I used to go to them all the time, but now
Yeah.
now I got to pick and choose. So I tend to go to Gen Con just because a lot of my friends go there, and it's a time where I can see my friends from all over the country and sometimes other countries, and we can meet up and have lunch and dinner and do whatever. Um, but I really do like I like Winter Fantasy because it's smaller.
Okay.
That makes sense. And Gamehole Con is actually very fun. I've been there once, right? And then I was going to go to my second one last year, and they did. But they asked me to be a guest this year, so that'll be cool.
Oh, that is cool. I've
Yeah.
done Gamehole Con only once as well. The last year that conventions were a thing, and I was probably going to try and make it to Gary Con for the first time in 2020, but how that went.
Yes. I actually I take it back. Gary Con was pretty fun. That was a different feel because that's more old school.
Yeah.
So the focus, was a little bit more on that, I thought, and which was totally cool. I had a good time. The first year I went to Gary Con was the first year I went to Gamehole Con, and that was right before pandemic shut all the cons down. So
Gen Con's a lot of fun, and it is good, like to connect with with a bunch of, like you said, your friends from other states and other countries. Um, but it's just so like big and overwhelming. It's a city. It's a city convention, like a convention city.
absolutely.
It's the only way I can think to describe it, because like I hadn't really been going to conventions before we started doing Nerdarchy, and I was like, well, maybe I should check this thing out. So like my first convention was Origin, and my second one was Gen Con.
Okay.
And then Ted has been more of a con goer, but like all small cons. Like the biggest one he would go to would be the Steampunk World's Fair, and it was here in Jersey and Edison, and it would be like 4 hotels, which was pretty big, but like next to some of the really big conventions, it's still small.
Right.
And so when we went to the first PAX Unplugged together, he's like, this is the biggest convention I've ever been to. And I was kind of like, well, I'm a little disappointed. I thought this was going to be bigger. I mean, I know it's the first one, but still, it's PAX, and they do like 50 conventions a year, so I don't think they get a pass on it being a first year.
Yeah.
And compared to Origins and Gen Con, that one was pretty small, especially the first year.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had a chance to make it out to PAX Unplugged yet.
I have not. I've been to Origins. I usually end up going to like Winter Fantasy, Origins, Gen Con, and then filling in with smaller, like local conventions. And I went to college in Milwaukee, so I usually will often go to a lot of their smaller conventions and things like that. Just
I I highly recommend Unplugged. I've had a lot of fun at that one, and it really did grow up pretty fast too.
Mhm. I've heard nothing but good things about it, and so it's on my list. But
Yeah.
it's not happening this year. Even if it happens, which I don't even know, because
Yeah.
all of the conventions have smooshed into the very end of
To
the
the
year, and
last
I
quarter.
just can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
What?
Um, for us, like that might be the first one we go to because it's also kind of local to us. So
Oh, is it
yeah,
nice?
yeah. So like if we don't like the vibe or whatever, we can just leave and it's not really a big deal.
Yeah,
Unlike
you're
if
not like,
if you
"Ah."
fly to some place to go to one, you're kind of stuck there.
Yeah, that is true. Or if you drive, like when I was younger,
Yeah.
we used to drive to Gen Con, and it's like a 16-hour drive, I think, from here.
Yeah, for us it's like I think it's like a 13.
Yeah. And I have friends who still do it, and they're like, "Come on, it's fun. It's a road
Uh,
trip." And I'm like, "You know what? No, I'm too old for that. I'm getting on a flight, and I'm gonna relax when I get there, and I'll beat you there. So have fun."
yeah, we flew once and drove twice. My first year, I drove out with my son. We drove out through Ohio, so we stopped in Ohio, picked up our content director, Nerdator Doug, and then the next day, went on to Indianapolis, which was kind of cool because it was like my son was like 17 at the time, and um, to do like the father son thing.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, my daughter is not into gaming, I think, because I do it.
Yeah, thank you for that because a lot of times I have people on and like they're like all their kids are like totally into it, right? But like I tried with both of my kids and my son took a while to come around and
Mhm.
he's still pretty casual
Yeah.
about it. And a lot of our games were recorded earlier on, so after he kind of like got into it, but we were gaming, he's like, I don't want to be on camera. And then like he kind of broke down. He's like, well, you know what? I want to play. So he ended up in a bunch of our gameplays. But like when I think I tried with like 4E with him, and he just wasn't that into it. It wasn't until we did Mutants and Masterminds, and he could play a flying purple gorilla from space that he was sold on on gaming.
Wow. I haven't played that game in forever.
Yeah, I haven't played in
That's
a while
awesome.
either. And then my daughter, like she got bored of it real quick. She didn't have the attention span for it. I thought maybe like at the time when I tried getting her into it. She was like into Monster High dolls, and I was like, well, minis are just kind of like smaller dolls, and like we made a
Yeah.
character based around a Monster High character, but no. So eh,
She I don't even think that it's that she finds it boring. It's the fact that I do it.
yeah, well, that's a good possibility too. Like,
Well, I'm pretty sure because she gives her friends hard times about it. She's like, because she's kind of in that
yeah,
group and into video games and all that stuff, and she's like, oh, my friends have started playing this game called Magic the Gathering, and I'm like, oh yeah, I have all these cards, and then she instantly was like,
yeah, she's done.
mm, you have ruined it now. I'm like, oh, sorry. Like I didn't
Yeah,
even think about it. So it's fine.
that's.
She's like, oh, stop saying my mom is cool. Like that's a
Sh-
first.
yeah, she'll probably come around.
Maybe. I think it'd be good for her. She's pretty creative, so and she loves, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah,
whatever. If she doesn't, she doesn't. If she does, great. I'll show her how to do it.
I had another friend that he used the top shelf approach, and
How so?
like so like you put everything out of the reach and be like, that's not for you. That's for adults. You're not old enough for
Oh,
that.
that's
and
funny.
that seemed to work. I've heard a lot of different approaches that have worked over the years.
I'll have to try that. Oh no, you can't. This is
Yeah,
for no.
you're not
Mm-mm.
cool enough.
Yeah.
I don't think that approach is going to work with your daughter. It's like, not cool enough, mom. You're doing it.
Yeah, she's 14, so
I understand.
she's like, uh-huh, sure.
So, Rivers RPG channel wanted to know how long have you been playing D&D?
You're gonna make me tell how old I am. I've been playing D&D since I was 10 years old. So I actually went to my first Gen Con when I was 10 years old. So I would say about 34 years then.
Yeah,
So
I'm somewhere around there as well. How did you get
yeah,
to your first Gen Con at
10.
10? Yeah.
So my cousin and I had started playing. Actually, I should say we started playing Mech Warrior first. And he lived across the street, and we were both into, myths and that sort of same thing. So um, we had both been at the library, I think, and found, some Mech Warrior books and checked them out and thought they were really cool. And then he came over later and was like, look, I found an even better game. It's called Dungeons and Dragons. And so the two of us would play, after school kind of a thing. And my mom was like, hey, I heard of this thing called Gen Con, and it's like an hour from here, because I lived on the Wisconsin-Illinois border at that point. And she's like, so would you guys want to go and check it out? And we were like, yeah. So that was it. And then I went every year until I got pregnant, and then I missed the year I had my daughter, and then I missed the first year it moved to Indy.
So, moral of the story: kids wreck your life. They keep
I
you
don't
from
know.
going
1
to Gen
year
Con.
is fine.
So, Mech Warrior, huh? Was your first
I know,
game?
right?
Well, the first game, I saw the red box first, and a friend of mine had brought it over, and we didn't actually play it. I ended up playing like a session or two of Gamma World
Nice.
first, and then I wouldn't touch anything for probably a few years before I started playing AD&D.
Okay. It's fun.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I got into it, and it's been great for me. So.
Well, also back then it was a lot harder to get into the hobby. You fumbled into it.
Yes, that is kind of how it worked. And then there was all the, this is terrible and evil.
Well, yeah, there was that too. So I guess where we lived, I remember joking about it and making fun of the Satanic Panic while we were playing D&D. And joking about needing our goats to sacrifice and our goat-headed hoods.
Nice. Very nice. No, I actually got pulled into the principal's office when I was younger because of it. And I will say, that was one thing, my mom checked it out. She was like, I've heard these things, but she sat and played with me the first couple, at once she knew that we were playing it and stuff. And she actually really liked it and I wanted to play all the time. So, but we were probably like my daughter, no, I don't think so.
My parents weren't very involved, but at the peripheral, they're like, "Oh, you're reading and doing math," so they didn't care.
Well, that's great that they were like, yeah, whatever. But my cousin and I got pulled in the principal's office to talk about it.
Yeah.
And my mom showed up and she lost her mind on them. And it was never mentioned again. So, but it was, you're a kid. That's kind of embarrassing. You're like, well, I don't, who wants that? What's going on? So.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for us growing up with that kind of stuff it just wasn't a cool thing to talk about or to do for sure. So for us, we always kept it on the down low and we'd talk in code. If we're talking to our friends at school.
Nice.
Because how high schools are, they're all very cliquey and we're all kind of metalheads and into metal at the time. And some of my friends were musicians. So we would just call it rocking out and be like, you want to rock out this weekend? So people wouldn't know what nerds we were.
I still listen to a lot of that music. My daughter's like, do you listen to not angry music? Sometimes, depends on my mood.
Listen, late 80s, early 90s was the pinnacle of human civilization. So it's
using that. I'm going to use that.
It's all yours. Yeah, that is a lot of my music as well. Still, I've not evolved. So Dave Rosser wants to know the process for working with Wizards of the Coast for Candlekeep. You talked about it a little bit when we got started.
Yeah.
And they reached out to you because they realized you're awesome.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah.
No, so yeah, they did reach out to me and asked, like I said, they asked if I wanted to, be on this mystery project, and I said yes. And then I had to sign a bunch of NDAs and all this stuff and good things. And then they sent it out and they said, okay, so here's the project idea. It's going to be you know, based in Candlekeep. It has to be a mystery and it has to tie into a book, but you can and here's your level assignment and go. So
So it
it's
sounds like it was pretty open.
it was, which was nice. I mean, I do a
Yeah.
lot of different things where they're like, here's exactly what we want. You have to write it this way. And sometimes for me, that box is harder to write in. I like to be a little bit more creative. And as things as you write, I feel like sometimes stuff changes and I'm like, this isn't really working the way I thought it would or whatnot. And I like to have that flexibility to kind of pivot if I need to.
So I know you've worked for Wizards of the Coast and Baldwin Games. Anyone else?
Yeah, so I've done lots of different things. I've done a bunch of stuff for Adventures League, which I guess is still Wizards of the Coast. I've worked for Cobalt Press, or not Cobalt Press. Oh my God. I'm thinking of the book, which is the Potbellied Cobalt. I worked for Jeff Stephen Games. I've done just a bunch of different things here and there, whether it's just straight editing or whatnot. I will say that I don't think editors get enough credit.
They are the unsung heroes.
Yeah, because I get a lot of stuff that's kind of a hot mess.
Yeah. If you listen to editors anyway. No, like it's one of those jobs, right? That you don't notice it until it's not done well.
Yeah.
You only notice it when there's mistakes. So
yeah, and there's different kinds of editing. I mean, you can edit for punctuation and all that stuff, but there's a lot of content editing or mechanics with RPGs. There's a lot of things that you have to kind of pay attention to, not in formatting and all that kind of stuff for layouts, and it's kind of a pain sometimes.
yeah. Well, do you do all the editing or do you do a specific type of editing?
I do all of it. And usually all of it on one project. So
yeah, on the biggest project we've done today was Out of the Box Encounters, and Doug did the in-house editing, but he also worked on the project a lot. So after he did his final pass on it, we then sent it out to Matt Click to do the proofreading of, who also does editing as well. So it's like you can never have too many eyes on something.
No, and even my stuff where think I'm pretty careful, your stuff is going to say what you think it's going to say. You need to have another set of eyes, especially if you wrote it, because you're going to miss your own stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gonna happen.
Like, yeah. So for that, we did have like a lead designer and writer. So, but then like when the project originally wasn't supposed to be a product.
Oh, really?
So it was a series of articles on our website.
Okay.
And we're like, these are really useful. These would make a great book. So they weren't written with the SRD in mind when they were written, because it was just going on a blog posts.
Right.
And, so there had to be a lot of things that were reworked and figured out. So in that regards, Doug ended up involved a lot in addition to doing all the editing. So it's like you essentially said, you need fresh eyes, or it's going to say what you want it to say.
Yeah, it's not going to work well, and it's going to be, even the best of us. It's just.
But before I had someone to look over the stuff that we would put up on the website, I would read what I wrote before I posted it out loud, in order to just to try and help myself catch myself from, like you said, filling in the blanks. As I feel like when I read it out loud, I did that less. Still plenty of stuff missed, and it's so much better now we have someone to edit for us.
That is a huge deal. Or putting it aside for a week or like a couple days or whatever, and then coming back and rereading it. That helps me a ton, because then I'm a different mindset and I can look at it with fresh eyes, and I'm like, oh, what was I doing here? Or there's been many times I'm like, this is garbage. This is junk. What the heck? I'll come back and be like, this is better than I remember.
Yeah. Sometimes when you're in it, it's just hard, to look beyond.
Yeah.
So I got distracted by it. I get distracted by a question, actually. Dave Rosser asking for dirt on Greg Marks. I'm not sure who Greg Marks is, but I'm guessing maybe you do.
He is one of the admins for Adventures League, for D&D Adventures League, and I cannot tell you any dirt on Greg. He would kill me. I've been friends with Greg for a very long time, actually. So I do know actually lots of little bits of dirt, but I'm a nice person and I will not share those. Because
you'll never get it out of Toni.
Correct. I would feel bad. He likes cats. He does not have enough shelf space for his books, and he is admiring my work on my new bookshelf.
A good bookshelf is no small thing to sneeze at, for sure.
Yeah, well, I got tired of my just ones from Target, like smiling because the books are
yes
bowed.
You just got to take them all off and flip the shelf.
I do that probably more often than you'd think, and it's kind of sad. But no, so I just started working on. I bought some wood, and holy buckets, was that expensive? But a friend of mine's dad has a woodworking shop, so he said we could use it, and I've been putting together three bookshelves. Although I probably had to explode because I went from 6 feet to 7 feet.
Oh no! How do you reach the top shelf?
I'm not short, so I can.
Well, I couldn't reach the top shelf if it's 7 foot tall. Oh, baby,
with your arm.
That's true. It just seems it seems really high.
Well, the 6 foot shelf was like just this much shorter than me, and I was like, I feel like this is really short.
Yeah.
So, and I wanted enough space for, like I literally had gaming books with me so I could measure and make sure they would fit in each.
So, writing, editing, woodworking, is there anything you can't do?
I like to try new stuff, so it depends. I'm sure I can't walk downstairs. How's that?
Well, my wife went through this period where she couldn't walk upstairs. And she would like trip falling upstairs.
I've done that.
like I'm not going to let you near steps unsupervised. This isn't working.
Oh, it was bad. Day after Thanksgiving, I was going down into my basement, into the I can't even talk. The chest freezer to get a pizza because I was already sick of leftovers, and I just fell down the stairs. I missed a stair, and I went all the way down. I landed on my feet though, like a cat.
There you go. Boom.
Except I am not a cat, and I ended up breaking my ankle and my leg and rupturing a bunch of tendons and tearing a bunch of stuff. It was really bad.
That sounds terrible. I hope you're better now.
It is getting better. I got out of my cast like 3 weeks ago because I was in a cast for like 3 months, and because I really did a number, and they were like, oh, if we do it this way, you don't have to have surgery. And I'm like, okay, I will make sure that I do not do it. So, but no, it's doing better. It's still like sitting and doing any sort of work on it makes it swell up, but I'm doing physical therapy, and they're like, yeah, you got to do that. You got to make it work.
The word rupture just sounds so terrible.
I know, when they said that, I'm like, what the? They're like, well, you didn't tear it completely, so you don't have to have surgery, but it's like all of them.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't even know what happened. I was like all impressed that I landed on my feet for a whole 5 seconds before my brain was like, nope, something's wrong.
Ow.
Yeah.
Get off your foot.
Woo.
Yeah. So. I've like banana peeled down steps a couple times. Or like wearing socks, and you like just catch the lip and you slide, but my body would just go rigid, so I just slide right down. I think I've like the one time I did it, my mother-in-law was like at the bottom stuff. She's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Give me a minute. I'm not sure yet." Is everything still there? Okay,
Yeah.
I think we're good. We
Did I
survived.
did I brain myself? What's going on?
Yeah.
That's fun.
Well, gamers aren't usually the most agile of people.
I'm surprised I haven't broken anything. I am known for not having a good dexterity. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you can't say that anymore.
No, I cannot. I cannot. So they're like, oh, so you have no constitution score and you have no dex score. Good job, Toni. Like, thanks.
So, in the end times, what's your gaming been like? The same, less, more?
It has been less consistent, but I think it has been kind of maybe a little less. But just because like my regular gaming group, half of them do not want to do it online. They just
Okay.
don't. They're like, nope, I'm not going to do it online, period. So I used to have a monthly or a weekly Monday night gaming thing. So we're not doing that. So it's spread all over the place whenever somebody's like, hey, we should play or we should not. So like tomorrow, I'm doing a stream tomorrow night. I was asked to play in an AD&D Greyhawk adventure thing, but it'll be me and Eric Menge and Ed Greenwood, and I was like, oh my god, I can't say no.
Yeah, of course not. You're playing with Ilminster.
I know, so that'll be interesting. So I'm kind of curious. Also, I'm going to spend some time later today refreshing my memory on those rules because it has been a very long time since I've played that.
Ugh, yuck.
So, but it's kind of like that sort of, hey, hey Toni, can you run Candlekeep for us? I think next week I'm running for a friend of mine from Australia and all his Australian friends. And so timing was a little difficult on that.
It's instantly where my mind went. I've got a few friends in Australia, and also depending where in Australia they are. But the timing is difficult.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Saturday night for me and Sunday morning for them. So it's just kind of all over the map. So it's when, hey, does somebody, or, and I've been doing some of the virtual game days, judging once or twice or playing. I can't sit at a computer for hours because of my ankle.
Yeah.
Because it gets really bad. So I can do like one a day right now if I need to.
Yeah, I mean, without an ankle, I find it hard to sit at a computer for games. At least not for long games. Like I feel like 2 hours is like around the sweet spot for an online game.
I just find it mentally and exhausting. Like I don't know what the difference is. I don't know if it's just because
I have a theory.
I don't know what it is. I haven't figured it out yet. I mean, I know as the DM, there's a lot more moving parts because now you're working with technology, and if you have a virtual tabletop, you know what I mean. I've been learning how to do Roll20. I kind of avoided it as the DM stuff, but
they wore you down. So
yeah,
my theory is with games when you're doing them live, like live, anything just kind of has its own energy to it. And I think that kind of like feeds us.
Yes, I kind of agree with you.
I think
that's fun.
Whether you're talking about going to a concert, the circus, or playing D&D with a group of people, it just I find it invigorating. Even like if I go into the game tired, I feel like it gets me up and going after it gets started.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's lots of I was talking with Greg Marks the other day, and I was like, we decided that I was like, I think we're both people vampires. We just feed off the energy of human beings, and if we don't have it, we're like, meh.
Yeah. That makes sense. I can find it sometimes invigorating or draining, depending.
It can be draining, but I think it kind of depends on the environment too. If you're with your friends or somebody who's cool and fun, it's different. If you're with somebody who's awful, I get a lot less tolerant.
You know what? I think it's like more of a group thing, right? Like, because I worked as a personal trainer for like 5 years, and like I found that very draining. mentally and emotionally, because it was all one on one or one on two, and over the course of a day, like just cycling through person after person. Whereas like with the group, it's more relaxed and you're not. And I think it's like maybe like the same thing when you're playing online. Like you feel like you're just on the whole time, and it's like you have to be you, but like kind of turned up.
Yes. And for me, if you hadn't been able to tell, I'm kind of a little high energy and I get excited on things. And so it's very difficult to, especially if there's not a camera, it's very difficult for me to pick up clues on when someone else is talking. And I don't want to accidentally overtalk. Like I don't want
Yeah.
to talk over somebody. So I stress about that. And then I either get really quiet, maybe more than I would, or, then I'm like,
It can be challenging. It takes like I feel like Zoom and most of the online applications takes like real life and makes it turn based, just like the games we play.
Okay, I like that analogy. I'm
Yeah.
using it. I'm stealing it.
So for your AD&D character, what are you playing? A thief, a magic user?
I am actually playing a half elven fighter mage.
Nice.
So we'll see. I was like, all right, I gotta
Yeah.
remember. So I think
Fighter
either today or
magic user.
tomorrow.
I don't think we didn't have mages back then.
Maybe I'm misremembering what I came up with, what we came up with.
The well, before like your levels had titles.
Yes.
Yeah, and like you had to be like 10th level before you could be called a wizard.
That is very, very true. Okay, now I'm gonna like think about it because what
Yeah.
was it? I want to say it was. I want to make sure it was a mage. So I'm gonna look at it. How's that?
Oh.
Oh, it is a magic user. I did do magic user, fighter magic user.
Yeah.
3/3.
We didn't have rogues. We didn't have wizards. Well, we did have wizards. It just took a long time to get to be a wizard.
Yeah, I seriously have not played that since 3.0 came out, which was way too long ago.
Just watch out for those lightning bolts.
Right? Right. Well, I'm 6th level. It looks like 3/3. So
no, you would still just be 3rd level because multi-classing was way different in
yeah, that's
the
true.
earlier
It was,
editions.
wasn't it?
Like you went up both, and you were, and oddly enough, you didn't end up like lagging that far behind the rest of the party. From what I remember, anyway, it's been, oh my god, like it's been a long, long time.
Right?
But I did get to play in a game Stefan Pogorni was running where he runs like it's like a version, the 1st edition. And I was so excited when someone cast lightning bolt and like it went through all the enemies and then it hit a wall and then bounced back and hit all the enemies again and also 2 of the party members and stopped like right in front of the person that cast it. So he killed like all the enemies and like 2 party members.
Nice. Whoops. That's always good when you're like, sorry.
Yeah. Or well, it makes me think of the meme where the player's like, I cast fireball, and the GM's like, I said the room is these dimensions, and the player's like, I didn't ask how big the room was. Teflon Billy never bluffs. But there's like so many weird rules from earlier editions, some of which I missed, like bouncing and rebounding lightning bolts. I just remember like I was trying to figure out like the optimum like angles, so you're like doing like trigonometry to figure out how you can hit the most targets the most times with a single lightning bolt spell.
Yeah, you gotta like, I mean, you do that to some degree in some of the later editions. So
yeah. And at the same time, I don't miss it that much either. Like there's so many things that are ridiculous. Like now you're gonna have to remember Thaco. Ugh.
I know, right? I still play 3.5, 3.0 Pathfinder, all that stuff, but I have not touched the other stuff since probably about 2000, if not, yeah,
Well,
about then.
I feel like the nice thing about third edition is like they codified things.
Hmm.
So it's like in AD&D, I remember like sometimes you need to roll low, sometimes you need to roll high. And in third edition, they're like, nope, you just always need to roll high.
Yes.
And they fixed armor class so that it wasn't weird anymore.
It wasn't weird and confusing, and you didn't need to roll low and then look at a chart, if I remember correctly.
Well,
There
you
was
had
a chart,
low
right?
your armor class. You still had to roll high, but it was like to hit armor class 0. So like the armor went from -10 to +10, and then
Yeah.
this weird sliding scale. Do you remember Did you ever have the wheel for Thaco? It was like in a Dragon magazine.
Yes, and it
Yeah.
was like one of those. It was like one of those secret mission things or whatever. I don't even know what those are called, but yes.
Yeah, but you'd have to like look at the right class and level and turn the wheel, and you had like I think it came in a Dragon magazine, and you had to assemble it.
Yes. You know
Uh,
what it would always made me think of? You remember those old gold box video games where you had the wheel for your to make sure you weren't scamming the game to log in or whatever you're talking. You know what I'm talking about?
I do not.
Can't remember what those are called.
I'm also
So,
not that much of a video game player.
oh,
For what console, or was it?
they were for just they were the old gold box D&D. They were for your Commodore 64 or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but they had those like wheels that when you logged into the computer, so because they couldn't tell if you had copied the game from
Somebody
somewhere
else.
So they had these like wheels that you had to, it'd say,
Oh, I'll
wheel
tell you
to
why.
whatever, and you'd like have to.
I'll tell you why I have no idea what you're talking about. I didn't own my first computer until I was like 22, 23. It was after I had bought my first house, and I was just about to get married that we like my family never owned a computer, and even at like my wife's family, like they had one computer, right? So that everyone would share. But I also feel like that was also a lot more common back then.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was.
And then yeah, so like, and my first computer was a Gateway. I remember going to the Gateway store. Do you remember those?
Yes.
Came in the cow boxes.
Yes, I do. There's from my dad actually was really into computers, but that wasn't really a thing back then. So he would get them and then just play with it on his own, which was really cool. But then it also let me be able to
Experience
play on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like when I think from being a kid, when I think of video games, it was like the Atari or ColecoVision. And then we got older, we got the Nintendo NES, which was actually the first game system I owned.
Nice.
My friend, all my friends had Ataris, but we were kind of poor, so I'd have to go to their houses to play them.
No, I get that. Various times we didn't have a lot either. I do remember when I was, I want to say in high school, I guess. I had the Nintendo, and my cousin Phil, who lived across the street, he got the Atari, so that we, or the Sega. He got the Sega, so that we could play.
You could swap off, yeah.
So it was good. It was fun.
Absolutely, yeah. Contra and Altered Beast.
I loved Altered Beast.
Yeah, because also we had the same thing. Like we didn't have the Sega, but one of my friends did, and we had the NES, so we'd go over there and play Altered Beast. And then have to come to our house to play like Street Fighter and Contra.
Yes. So that same cousin, his dad owned a pizza place and an arcade when I was a kid. And back then you had to purchase the machines instead of rent them for your arcade. And so like he would have to spend the summers with his dad, and his dad was not the best babysitter. Yeah. So he'd be like, whatever. He'd give us those ice cream buckets, and he'd go and he'd unlock some video game, take all the quarters, just dump them in there and lock it back up and say, come find me when you run out of money.
That's the perfect parent for a kid.
It was awesome.
Maybe not in hindsight, but when you're there, like,
Right? And then we wouldn't see him all day, and he'd be like, I don't even know if half the time he was probably not even at the place, and he'd just like
yeah.
be like, yeah, just ask somebody if you want food. Like, okay.
He outsourced
Correct. So
raising
that was the
raising the kids.
babysitter, was the arcade. And then when, because he had to purchase the games when they got
Uh,
too old, he would take them into the basement and turn them on free play.
nice.
So we'd like play Joust for hours.
What was your favorite arcade game?
I would actually say Joust. But I
Nice.
mean, they were all kinds of different fun ones and stuff. Played Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles a lot. That game was
Yeah.
fun.
I remember like our corner store, because like where I lived is kind of like it's kind of rural,
Mhm.
and like there was only like one store, and they had put in a couple arcade games, and one of them was Gauntlet. So we
Oh,
would like
yes.
just live
Gauntlet.
there.
Yeah, that one was fun.
Yeah.
The wizard is about to die.
Yeah, exactly. That and I used to love like Centipede and
Yes.
Zaxxon.
I still have a special place in my heart for Pac-Man.
Yeah, it's a classic.
It is.
Remember Dragon's Lair?
Yes, that game
Like
was the bomb at the time, especially.
I never could play it. All I did was stick my quarter in and die like immediately. There was always like it always seemed like there was only like one kid in the whole arcade that knew how to play the game and could get it to do the things. It wasn't me.
Eh, you just watch the one kid because the cutscenes were the cool part because they
Yeah.
were really done well at that point.
On the plus side, like at least when you died, it was interesting.
Yes, it
I think
was
they're doing
very
a Netflix
interesting.
series for Dragon's Lair or
Are they?
Spaces. One of them. Yeah.
Huh.
I think Ryan Reynolds is going to be involved.
Okay, that's fantastic.
Yeah, that should be pretty good. So,
Nice.
of all the projects you worked on, what was your favorite?
Ooh, my favorite. Um, that's a hard one because some of them are pretty different. I mean, I really enjoyed doing the Candlekeep stuff just because it was a little bit different and I had
Yeah.
that creative freedom. I mean, I used an idea that I had been thinking about for a long time and I just hadn't put to paper. I keep a little notebook of like, hey, this might be cool, or like, just random sort of ideas, even if it's just something really, really small. I'm like, oh, you know what? I want to. Nobody can use this. I want to write an adventure with a dryad pirate, and their ship is a living ship. It's their tree, and so I kind of want to do something with that, and those kind of just random sort of ideas like that. And so I had that, and so it was kind of fun because this was an idea that was kind of I've been thinking about for quite a while. But I did also I haven't really had like a bad experience with anything. So, it, it depends. I do tend to get the higher level assignments just because I think those are harder and it's harder to find people who are able to do that. So it depends on like if I'm like, oh, like when I did the one for the Potbelly Kobold, it was a lower level adventure and I was like, oh great. You just get this right out here.
Change of
So
pace.
yeah,
Do you prefer working on higher level adventures, or is it just where you end up?
it's just where I end up. I like doing all of them. They have different things. Higher level takes longer just because the mechanics take a lot
Yeah.
longer. So
Do you have a particular part about adventure design or writing that you enjoy above the rest?
um I really enjoy putting conundrums out there for players and making them think and trying to maybe twist things so that it's not quite the standard way that they've been trained to do things. And I like to make villains with motivations. I don't like just the standard bland boring evil. like I like the kind of things where like, hey, this person is obviously a terrible person and they're killing all these people, but they are doing it because they're trying to save these other people, or whatever. So that sort of thing is very fun for me. And I kind of enjoy it. Now, that being said, I know, and I've been accused of this many times, I can be I can be verbose. So I that is something that I need to watch, as I get a little too descriptive and excited sometimes when I'm doing things and I have too much in there. So it's a balancing act, because you want a lot of stuff in there, but you don't, I don't need to have 3 pages of box text or whatever I'm doing. So
Are you pro or against box text?
I'm pro box text. You can't change my mind.
I wouldn't even try.
No, I do think it has its place. I think that it sets the scene for things, and it gives a feel for the DM on what they're doing. And so I think they're important. But again, box text is there. You don't have to read it verbatim. It's there to either give the DM an idea, or they can kind of sum up what's going on, but just so that they, especially if it's an important scene or, point, you really want to set, it's supposed to be creepy. Well, here's like, a paragraph of really creepy, whatever. So
Yeah, one of the best answers I've gotten for that question kind of dovetails right into what you're saying, and I think is what you're saying is like it's a way to let the DM know what's important in the scene from the writer's perspective. Because if you give the players a bunch of details, they will just lock on inevitably to the ones that are irrelevant. Without
yes.
fail, I don't know why it just happens every time. It seems like anytime, as a GM, you're forced to make something on the spot,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's a throwaway thing for you, and that next thing you know, like 3 sessions later, that's what the players have been doing.
Yeah, they glom onto that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like the box text and having the writer's perspective on that probably helps with that and kind of steer things.
I absolutely agree with you. Now, that being said, there is too much, when when Adventures League went to no box text,
Yeah.
and I wrote an adventure. So I just kind of moved it into like, here's the setting description kind of a thing. And my comment was, stop trying to sneak box text in here, Toni. Fine.
They caught you.
Yeah, they caught me. I was like, it's not in the box.
There is no box.
I don't know what you're talking about.
That's funny. So James and Ricasso, suck it. Box text for the win.
Hey, everybody's allowed their own thought and style. James can ignore all the box text he wants, and that's cool for him.
Yeah, I think he spent a while starting some Twitter fights over box text.
I saw that. I was like, I don't know if it was a fight, but he obviously does not enjoy it, and that's okay.
Yeah.
There is, like I said, there's such a thing as too much, but I do think it's important.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's just because I'm old school a little bit. So
maybe, but also like sometimes like we do things for a reason, but then like we've been doing them so long, we take those reasons for granted. Yes. Because you become very experienced, and it's easy to become disassociated or out of touch with what it's like to be a new GM or a new player. Like even like as a YouTube content creator, like trying to figure out like what should we talk about for new players. I'm like, I have no idea because I haven't been a new player in like 30 years. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know. For me, I do a lot of one of the things I tend to do is like little mentoring things. Mm-hmm. And I think that the biggest thing that new players get stuck on is that flexibility. They feel like it has to be exactly as it's on here, and they stress if it's not. And the biggest thing is you got to be ready to throw it away, because they're not going to do what you want. They're not going to follow what's going on there. And it's really just to have fun, and it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely a lesson I learned fairly early. So, like, in my homebrew campaigns, I just like to load up tons of plots and throw them out there and see what they want to do. As opposed to being like this, because I've done plenty of campaigns where like, this is what we're doing, and this is going to be this long epic thing that never would last.
Well, there's that too. So it depends on your group. Some groups will go forever, and some groups, people move, life changes, whatever happens, and or it falls apart, or everybody gets bored, and so you got to kind of be ready for
people grow up and start adulting.
Yes, and how you can work that around your D&D group, I don't know.
For sure. So we're just past the hour mark, and it's been really fun chatting with you. Any final thoughts before we head out?
No, I had a ton of fun, so I'm really excited that you asked me. I like talking about gaming.
I feel like most of us do. There, as always, there are links in the description, so you can go follow Toni around the interwebs. And with that, until next time, stay nerdy.